Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for this amazing discussion about mental health. As you're all aware, it is unfortunately still a stigma across the workplace and just generally speaking. And I think we have a long way to go as far as raising awareness and making this more of a normal conversation. So with that said, it does go hand in hand with toxic workplace culture. And as I'm sure many of you are aware, when you're in a toxic workplace culture, your mental health generally takes a hit. So I'm really pleased to invite Derek today to discuss mental health. He is an advocate for ending the stigma around mental health and has experience working for a not-for-profit and has created some amazing documents and information on the subject. So I'm very eager to share that with you today within our discussion. So unfortunately, we did have some issues with the live. So this is recorded through Zoom. But if you do have any questions, feel free to just add it in the comments as this will be a replay. So we'll try and get through them as soon as possible. So with all that said, a big warm welcome to Derek. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to hear more from you.
Yeah, thanks, Catherine, for inviting me from Scotland. Sunny here just now, blue sky. It's under lockdown. Out today walking. Yeah, thanks for inviting me in this topic. I'm very passionate on the topic. I've got a lot of sadly experience in it. But it's I'm trying to use my bad experiences for positive and good.
Yeah. So I always like to start off by asking, what is your sort of toxic workplace story? What are some sort of lowlights and highlights, and I guess a bit of your background?
Yeah, well, my background, I'm a big history fan. I love history. I'm passionate in history. I love everything about history.
Mm-hmm.
I love to dress up, learn history, reenactment. For a hobby, I dress up as a Jack and White Highlander. And I also do film extras.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I've been in Outlander 5 times,
Mm-hmm.
for example, as a Highlander. History, I like reading books.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Reading history books, and I also like to watch history films, play war games, and I've worked in history for 20 years. Well, I began working in history 20 years ago. So initially I was planting trees, and I got a job 20 years ago working in history, so heritage. And I love my job, with full passion. But unfortunately, I had a serial bully as a boss.
Mm-hmm.
And so he created quite an environment that I worked in. But because I loved my job, I tolerated it. And I got a bit ill during that job. I got headaches, sort of stress illnesses. But I didn't realise that I was being bullied. It's covert bullying. Covert word means it's hidden. So I didn't realise I was being bullied until I was told I was being bullied. So I got stress headaches. I went to see the occupational therapist. He said, "Do you realise you're being bullied?" And I said, "No way. I'm a Jacobite, hairy Highlander. I don't get bullied. I'm a big, strong man." He said, "Yes, you're being bullied." Then he explained what bullying was. Gosh, I'm being bullied. But it's so subtle, you don't realise it. Because it's subtle, it creeps up on you in small steps. So 5 years, I got a headache. 6 years, I got a bigger headache. 7 years, even bigger headache. It wouldn't go away. Then I developed other illnesses, colitis, and these happened to me. And then I thought, try and improve it, try and improve the life management, try and improve the toxic atmosphere. So I made sort of subtle grievances, just spoken grievances. They were kind of ignored. I got more ill. I upped my sort of protests or complaints sort of thing, well, advice complaints. I had a written complaint, and then I got ignored. And a year went on, I got more ill. Another complaint, nothing happened. It was still toxic. I got more ill. The thing is, when you make complaints, it outs the bully. It doesn't really stop it. It creates sort of a mistrust between you and the boss. The boss didn't trust me anymore. The boss got suspicious about me. So the bullying kind of increased the more I complained about it. And then I got even more ill, and then I was given antidepressants, which made me worse ill. I got worse headaches and antidepressants. And I felt really down with the antidepressants and the bullying. And I felt I was pushed into a corner. So I felt forced to do a grievance. I took a grievance procedure against the bully. Till I was 10 after 10 years of subtle bullying. And as soon as I made a grievance, the boss's boss turned against me.
Oh.
And 4 other bosses made some horrible accusations against me. They were calling me a bully. Rather than being a target of bullying, I became named as a bully. So 4 bosses named me as a bully.
Oh,
And then there's a procedure that bullying takes. It takes a procedure of phase 1 is isolation.
Mm-hmm.
I was isolated for 1 year, basically.
Oh.
I was transferred jobs for 1 year. You know? I was cut off from my colleagues for 1 year. And then part 2 is control subjugation. They try to sort of push me up my job, me leave on purpose. And finally, you're eliminated. It took 1 year for me making my grievance to get sort of run up my job. During that 1 year, my doctor was trying to help me do anything. His advice was leave that toxic workplace. You know, it's making me ill. His only advice was leave. And he wrote me a letter trying to get me a job transfer. Out of that atmosphere, so I handed my letter asking for job transfer to the main boss, and they couldn't ignore it. After 10 years, my doctor put me sick, basically. I was put in the sick. At the exact same time, I was finding a job at the exact same time I was in the sick. I was in the sick for 1 year. I was in 11 to be exact. So that's the story of my toxic workplace. It's a 10-year period of working in a heritage history place for 10 years, trying to get help, trying to get better management, better managed, and falling deaf ears. I had to up my complaints from a verbal sort of discussion to a verbal complaint, written complaint, and I found a grievance, and the further I pushed it, the more the managers pushed back, until when I made a grievance, it was so hard that I got worse ill. The doctor stepped in and told me to no, but the doctor told me he can't help me because the reason for the bullying is in somebody's head, and there's no pills to cure boss's opinion. You know, the pills they gave me made me worse, and your body's telling me just get out. So I had to leave my job, but it took 5 years to get a paid job.
Yeah.
So sort of 5 years to get my sort of that situation where I could get back to paid employment. It's a long, slow recovery, basically. I was 10 years in a toxic environment, and it came on me sort of 2005. It came out. It's 5 years of toxic environment to actually make an impact on my health. And I should have left then, but I love my job so much. And I kept telling me if I keep buying it, I might feel better. Or if I tell the boss, he'll bully less, and I'll feel better. But it didn't. It got worse and worse and worse. I should have left 2005. I kept on and off 5 years. 2010, and then that's where I left. Half pushed, half jumped, sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times I hear toxic workplace stories, every single time it's just almost equally devastating because it's the same kind of narrative that just gets repeated. This whole idea of even when you do recognize, I mean, firstly, as you said, there's this sort of blindness to it because especially when you love your job, but even on the whole, because it has been normalized for so long, I think people can't necessarily identify what the signs of a toxic workplace are or what the signs of bullying may be. So as you said, especially when it's covert, it's not necessarily as obvious as, someone's like destroying things around you. It could just be subtle ways of isolating you from the team or whatever that may be. So yeah, it's really devastating to hear that, especially after such a prolonged period and even after so many attempts, it just, without accountability, they've continued to allow this kind of behavior to exist. And it has, it's devastating to see how people with such skill are essentially pushed out of workplaces that they deserve to be at and respected for. So yeah, I'm really sorry that you've experienced that, but thank you so much for bravely sharing your story. I think many of us can definitely relate, unfortunately, and it is always enlightening to kind of hear that, although it is unfortunately a persisting issue, at least we are in it together and there are people who are trying to speak up and make a difference like yourself. So I really appreciate the time you're taking today.
Thanks, yeah.
So with that said, I do have a few key questions, which I think will be helpful to kind of address what everyone might be thinking. So you did say that, let's see, Yes, so you did say that you had you tried to sort of file a grievance and go through the formal complaint method, but I would love to know
Yeah,
some
yeah.
tips for, I guess, unofficial ways that you protected your mental health and well-being as best as possible, even if it's just small things, because I feel like that would be very helpful for someone who's currently in a toxic workplace
Hmm.
but stuck there.
Well, that was like 10 years ago, and at that time, well, my main interest was like living history, living history. During the work bullying, my great sort of release from work toxic environment was to do a reenactment. I dress up at weekends and be a Jacobite and a knight, and spend the whole weekend living in the Middle Ages. And that was a
Mm.
great way of relaxing and de-stressing because you're living in the past, so you're not in the present. The present's toxic. The past is exactly what you want it to be. So make the past sort of romantic, heroic. There's swords, there's guns. You dress up, you be famous, get photographed, talk to tourists, camp, put a tent up, have a whole day in the castle, whole weekend in the castle, go back having the cheers, like Edinburgh Castle. I was there 10 years ago. So at that time, 10 years ago, living history was like my main sort of social life and my main release from the toxic environment to get help my health a lot when I was working there.
Mm.
But it changed when I lost my job. I had to do more drastic things to get my health back together again because when I lost my job. It was a outward traumatic experience. The job was part of my life, part of who I was. This was my job in heritage and history. When that went, I lost quarters of what I was. I took it really personally. I had to try and fill that vacuum, you know.
Mm.
And I filled that vacuum with some brand new things.
Yeah.
My passion in history, I used that twofold. One, I took it to schools. To schools, I emailed every school in my area, my local
Mm.
sort of government area. I sent like sort of 50 schools email up, offered myself as a speaker, and
Okay.
I did like from 2000, I still do it now actually. I began 2011, emailed every school in the area, and I got the first year about 30 replies, and
Thing.
won a week for 30 weeks. I just bought my car, put my sword, my knight's helmet, breastplate, shield, go to schools. I've got four different PowerPoints in this thing, different topics. Battle of Bannockburn, Jacobites, Franklin's Charlie, Culloden, and I offer the schools these talks. Just turn up, plug it in, dress up. You have an hour's talk, get paid £30, and the kids love it. And the kids' feedback, because it gets the feedback, the kids cheer me up. I'm still doing
Mhm.
history, I'm appreciated, and I come back and I feel much better. And I began doing that 2011. I began doing that. So 10 years on, I'm still doing it. I gave sort of 4 talks like February before lockdown. That's one
Mm.
thing I've been doing is the talks. Secondly, when I went sort of unemployed, I had like Jack Nicholson in that movie in The Shining, the keyboard. I was at the keyboard for a whole year. I sat at the keyboard for a whole year from 9 a.m. to midnight for 1 year at the keyboard, just playing the keyboard. Writing
Amazing.
for, I wrote for a whole year on the keyboard. I was unemployed, I was on the sick, not unemployed. Unemployed. I got up, not sick, woke up, no work, sat at the keyboard and just wrote and wrote and wrote. I wrote so much, all the letters came off the keyboard. I had to buy a new keyboard sort of 5 years later. There's no letters, all rubbed off. I wrote and wrote and wrote. 5 years later, I've written 2 books, and I've got 2 more coming out this summer, hopefully. So all the writing,
Congratulations.
so 5 years writing, I've written 4 books actually, 2 published, and I got 2 of them hoping to get released this summer. I spent this lockdown editing those 2 for the spare time.
Mm.
So I'm hoping to get 2 more books finished. 5 years, I wrote 4 books in Scottish history.
That's absolutely amazing.
And yeah, and another thing I've been doing, this is I give this advice to anybody with bad mental health, is to go on a pilgrimage. Do a pilgrimage. I walked to Santiago de Compostela,
Hmm.
in 2012, I think it was. Walked to Spain. I walked from France, Saint Le Pied de Port. Took us 4 weeks, 500 miles, spiritual journey, pilgrimage. So you walk along and your head thinks, who am I? What am I doing here? Etc. This big world conundrums and things. And I worked out who I was during that walk. I'm a truth seeker. I'm a knowledge teller. And I'm here to tell. I'm here to teach folk sort of knowledge, history, for example, and help people as well. So I walked to Spain. I ended up Santiago, got my Compostela, and I walked to Finisterre, came back. And since then, every year since then, I do an annual top-up by doing one walk every year on pilgrimage. For the past 3 years, I dress up in medieval clothes and do the walks. Like 3 years ago, I dressed as a medieval monk, staff, and I walked to Whithorn from Glasgow. That took me about 2 weeks, that one did. Got audition for that, got in the newspapers. So pilgrimages, they mix sort of countryside with architecture, spirituality, exercise. And anybody with bad mental health, the best thing you can do is walk in the woods.
Yeah.
And if you combine the walk in the woods with history, the present, you're in the past, and you add to that spirituality, and you've got a goal. To me, a pilgrimage is like a metaphor for life. You go on a journey, you set off, make a plan, you've got a goal, and also life is reduced to minimum basics. Like today, our life is, you eat breakfast, you worry about this, that. Things, you watch TV, you've got the COVID in your head all the time. Whereas a pilgrimage, you've got nothing but food and water. Your only goal is, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? That's it for 2 weeks. And your head gets detoxed. I came back, every pilgrimage, I do one a year, as I mentioned. This year, I'm going to Spain this year, hopefully. July, September, I'm going to Spain a bit.
Yes, fingers crossed. Yeah.
Same walk. Well, I plan to do Iona this year, but it's cancelled.
Yeah.
But another pilgrimage. Because if you do that, your mind gets detoxed. Your mind's clear. You've got no television, no internet. You've only got food, water, sleeping, camping, hostel. The brain gets detoxed, the mind gets detoxed, the body's detoxed. You get a complete break. So I recommend anybody go for a pilgrimage. Pick a goal. It can be any goal. It doesn't have to be a church. It could be a hill, a mountain, Graceland, Elvis's grave, Jim Morrison's grave. It could be a hilltop, Ben Nevis. It could be a city. It could be a tree.
Really useful. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's funny because often we look for forms of escapism, especially when we are in a toxic workplace. But I think that those forms of escapism aren't always healthy. So like you said, it could be something like binge watching or binge eating and then feeling terrible about something, or it could be just spending too much time with people who aren't necessarily supporting you. There's such a huge range that people tend to rely on almost habits that don't necessarily serve themselves, especially when they are trying to just survive and get by the day to day. So I love your advice on just finding a healthy outlet, whether that's a passion or pursuing a area that you've always loved, or even just getting completely out of your usual comfort zone and going into more of that forest and nature scapes to really connect and focus more on, I guess, what matters, and I guess have that perspective as well, because when you are looking at kind of the survival of things and the history, it gives you a lot more context and perspective, and it might be refreshing to realize that this workplace is just a small piece of a much larger history and lifestyle. So I think that's a very unique but helpful piece of advice. Thank you.
Well, that's part of it, and also get back, find yourself to come back bigger than you were before. It's not if you were a stage 2 out of 5 in the workplace sort of hierarchy, aim at one higher. So you come back as a stronger person than you were previously before losing your job. So aim high when you lose your job. If you do lose it, aim higher.
Yeah,
so
I love
other things. Aim higher. There's you do more sort of things like getting back to work again. Took me a long time. Took me 5 years. And I did it in small steps because I was traumatized by the whole experience. It took a long time to get back to work again. I had a sort of phobia of offices.
Yeah, and it's also very interesting that you almost put yourselves in the character of someone else in order to find yourself. I find that very fascinating.
I did that, it was pure escapism. You know, I wasn't me, because if I'm dressed up, I'm no longer Derek. I'm a knight or a Jacobite. I'm a soldier and a warrior, rather than being who I am. And you get photographed, you speak to tourists, and you go into character as well. I had some really bad lows, like from a toxic workplace. There's really horrible lows, and there's some bad things about humanity. I sort of realised, and rather be positive towards humanity, not thinking a negative light. At least live in history, and live in history. You can see good side in giving talks. You get instant feedback giving a talk. Because people laugh, they clap. You get instant thanks, instant gratification from an audience. You know, that would cheer me up a lot, giving talks. And still do my history, because I was cut off from a history job. I couldn't do what I meant to be trained to do. That's a bad. Spent 6 years getting a degree and I can't use it. And so giving talks, I've been able to have an outlet for it. And my books is another outlet. Use my education for that. It's a good outlet for my professional.
This is such a comprehensive list. I feel like I need to be taking notes and maybe like share it with everyone as well, just so everyone gets the highlights. These are all very helpful. Thank you. So going back to your work in a not-for-profit, I'd love to know a bit more about like your definitions of different types of discriminations, discrimination, and also like generally how you would define toxic workplace culture and bullying and things like that, just for someone who maybe still trying to work out if it really is toxic and what they can do about it.
Well, if you take discrimination, if you take the legal sort of definition for it, there's an act called Equalities Act 2010. It gives the definition of discrimination in 9 pigeonholes. But unfortunately, regarding work bullying, none of them are actually relevant to it. I'll come back to that in a second. I'm saying this. That discrimination, it refers to like age, disability, gender, reassignment, race, pregnancy, marriage, religion, sex, and sexual orientation. That's the legal act definition of discrimination. But, however, when you come to the topic of a work bully, harassment is these topics. You harass folk over their age, these kind of things. But the work bully doesn't do that. The work bully discriminates in 2 different topics that are not covered by the Discrimination Act. The work bully, they discriminate against competence. That's competence. By that I mean they're envious of their abilities. They discriminate against people who are better than them. They envy your abilities. And also they discriminate against people who are popular. Popularity is a discrimination. They get jealous of your relationships and how successful you are. And I got bullied for 10 years. It wasn't because of my age or my race or anything at all. It's purely I'm a good worker and I'm popular. I had friends. I was going for my degree. So I was discriminated for my competence and my popularity. These 2 things are not covered by the Discriminated Against Work Act, you know. But what happened was I was covered by it eventually, because I got picked on, discriminated against, competence, popularity, and then eventually I became ill. I got a psychiatric illness. I was ill at work. The boss is still bullying me. I've got an illness. They were rid of me, but the law now protects me, because now I've got an illness that I disability. So initially I wasn't covered by the act, and then I was covered by the act when I became ill. But the problem arises is the employer can get over the disability discrimination at work act by basically accusing you of being a bully and a threat to the staff. So rather than me being discriminated against for being ill, disability, I've got work stress illness, the company that I worked for were actually accusing me of causing the boss to get ill. So they turned the tables against me. 4 of the staff that I worked with made up fake illnesses that they had due to me. And so I was basically dismissed because I was a threat to their mental health, which is completely turned tables. So regarding the Discrimination Act, it failed me, and I lost my job due to it. they accused me of actually, being like bullying the bully, so to speak. So the bully acted like a victim. No, I was a target, but the bully twisted things, and human resources protected us. And then the turntables, basically the Equalities Act, in my case, didn't work. It doesn't cover work bullying with the categories of competence and popularity, and not covered the discrimination at work. And that's these two things that work bully picks on. They're jealous and they're envious of the employee. These categories are not covered by the Discrimination at Work Act. So that law doesn't cover the employee, until they get sick, and then it's too late. They're ill, they're on the way out. Toxic.
Exactly.
It's gone too toxic. It's gone too toxic for the person. Once they get really ill, they've got to leave. Because it's broken down. The trust between you and the boss has been broken at that stage. You're just breaking trust with the boss by sort of declaring they're a bully. You do it small scale, but once it gets bigger scale, the boss doesn't trust the employee. They're worried in case they'll get sacked or you'll get them in trouble.
Yeah.
And they always get believed as well about you.
And I think that's one of the frustrations with this whole situation, is that it's not taken seriously until it's way beyond what it should have reached in the first place. So it's really, there needs to be a lot more preventative measures as well as intermediate measures that actually are effective, instead of reaching the worst case scenario and then realizing that, oh, actually, maybe we have a problem. And like you said, it's very problematic that instead of realizing that it's a systemic issue or an issue within the culture or something that the workplace needs to improve on, they often just blame the individual, even if that means skewing what is actually going on in favor of the company. So it is really frustrating to hear that this is kind of like an ongoing issue, but at the same time, I'm glad you've helped at least clarify the different kinds of discrimination, and also how the terms of discrimination may vary from a legal standpoint to what is actually occurring within the workplace as well. I think that's a very important distinction.
Yeah.
So,
I think the laws kind of behind legal definition doesn't cover work bullying. There's kind of loopholes. There's not enough. Everything's there are 9 categories they give, and that's like there's missing loads of categories. It doesn't cover body shape, tattoos, these kind of things. You can get bullied and harassed for tattoos. All folk, small folk, fat, ginger hair. You can get picked on for many things, not just your age or your gender. Folk can bully, harass anybody for 10 more things, but there's 9 pigeonholes. They should just have no pigeonholes and just have down care people.
Yeah, we certainly do have quite a long way to go before things are evened out, but I appreciate you raising awareness around this. So the next thing I wanted to discuss, I'm just aware of the time, I wanted to ask a bit more about, you're based in Scotland, and I'm always very interested in cultural elements, because I believe that look at the workplace culture, but it's also really important to look at societal culture and also nationwide culture and how that may impact what is normalized at work. So I'd love to know a bit about Scotland's culture, and also how that may impact both the stigma around mental health and toxic workplace culture maybe being perpetuated or normalized in a way that it shouldn't be.
Yeah, the Scots are very stoic. They keep pushing on. Very kind of my generation. They'll be hard working, stoic. They don't complain. So if you come across a hard bit of work, difficult hardship at work, you just keep going. They're often a bit dour as well, sort of cold, dour nationality sometimes. And they won't speak up, a bit shy. They won't speak up to authority sometimes. So that hard working and you stoic, keep going, don't complain. That's what I say, don't complain. Just keep working hard. So when you get ill, you just think it'll just rub off rather than speak up. They'll just wait, hoping it'll go away. They're hoping things will improve. And you wait and hope, just a bit harder. I working hard as well. I've got a work ethic. I do my best, get to the top. So I try hard. I try harder. And then the harder I tried, the more ill I got. In my case, my body was, he would take credit for my work sometimes, come in late, and I'd end up doing more work than I should.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got really burnt out doing too much work. And but I thought I was doing a lot of work, I'd be rewarded or at least be seen to be a good worker. So I'd try even more harder. And the harder I tried, the more ill I got. So I've got a strong work ethic to work really hard. And a little bit too, perhaps maybe class, it's a class thing. That's got a small effect. But maybe if you've got a lower job, you don't feel that you're better and complain. You just like pick your lot and just work hard, and you don't feel it's your place to sort of give your boss a row, basically. Because initially I was too shy to give my boss a row. It made me ill, and I gave him a sort of small sort of I'm not happy, and I gave him a small row and didn't like it. I gave him a bigger row and he hated it. I gave him a massive row and he, everything collapsed. So there's sort of that thing, maybe it's a class thing that someone higher up, you're not meant to sort of complain. You're not an equal sort of, apart from your workplace, you should be all the same equal, even though your job's different sort of levels. That's what answer that question. Yeah. I guess they work hard, they put up a lot and don't complain until it's too late.
Yeah.
Then it's too late. But from my point of view is, I complained too late, basically. I was just trying to work through, and I didn't my place to complain. I was brought up. Bosses in charge, they know what's right. You're told to do what they want you to do, and you do it to your best ability. I was doing that my best of my ability. I realised I was more clever than he was, more intelligent than he was. I was a better worker than he was. I was popping him up. I was realised it's all backwards and made us ill in the process. Spoke up earlier, and saved my point and did less work. Basically, I should be less stoic.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I think that it's funny that you mentioned this element of like working hard and you'll be rewarded. I feel like that is generally the case across the world. Like globally, it seems to be sort of this, it's like this idea that we're fed from a very early age, and then we sort of buy into it, and it's just not always the case. So it can be really devastating to discover that that isn't necessarily how things work. But I think in saying that, though, it is really interesting to hear that element of like stoicism and how that ties into different cultures. So for example, in Australia we have like this kind of like tough attitude. So it's almost like they call it ochre, and I think it started in like the 70s, but it's like the kind of blokey bloke, and it's just like it's very closely linked with like toxic masculinity and just being this kind of like tough guy that doesn't express their emotions and just goes through it and doesn't say anything and sticks it out to the very end. And I think that we definitely, even though generations have passed, there is still that kind of deeply ingrained sense of nationality that like has fed through different media and generations as well. So I would like to think that we're slowly evolving past that kind of more traditional mindset of what is strength, but at the same time I think that it really helps to kind of look at what has brought us here and why we may be reacting in a certain way or behaving in ways that may have nothing to do with what we initially thought, and actually are closely linked with what we've been brought up to believe.
Yeah, and the question you asked, what is a toxic workplace? The question you asked. Well, toxic means poisonous to me. That's any environment that sort of poisons you, and it sort of kills creativity, kills ambition. And you end up being ill and missing days, and you go to work and you can't. You don't want to do overtime. You don't want to be creative. You do the basic minimum to do your working week. So it kills lots of things. It kills love your job, you're passionate at your job. You want to change jobs. You wouldn't stay there long. But it's basically a poisonous atmosphere. It's a toxic workplace. It's not a happy place to be in.
Yeah, and I like that you emphasize that it is almost lethal because it does destroy and kill certain elements, even if it's not directly linked to an actual mortality. It still has that element of deadliness to it, unfortunately. So with that said, we've still got a few minutes. I would love to know what you think may be the solution to start resolving toxic workplace culture. And I realize this is a very loaded question because there isn't really one clear-cut answer, but yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, one, I see the solution to me is human resources. That's how I see it. Because when the target, the bullying, target itself, first person they approach is the human resources. They should straight away get onto the case. And but the problem is when you sort of bring up work bullying, you risk damaging the relationship with the boss. So stage two is probably look towards work transfer, work placement. You work in a different department. You talk to HR informally at first, and look towards work transfer. It can damage the atmosphere by just bringing it up the topic. But human resources, I think, is one of the goals. My previous job, they thought they'll retrain the bullying boss. That didn't work. Give the bullying boss a course, their staff better. But the damage was being done. Trust me. So human resources is the key, I think. It's up to them to stop the boss bullying, not the target of the bullying. This is emphasised like it's self-help, up to me to make the boss stop bullying. Because I once approached the British Labour, one of the ministers in government, Vince Cable, one of the British ministers in the Parliament. I asked him, what's the solution to workplace bullying? He says it's to make the victim of it more resilient to the bullying.
Oh, no, because then that's still internalizing
yeah, the official government stance in Britain, London, is to make the victim, myself, target, more resilient to the bullying. It isn't to make the bullying stop or punish the bullying. It's to make me more tough to resist the bullying. That's the official government line. So they must tackle that first. That the sort of implying the targets at blame for being soft and getting ill, due to the actions. They're targeting the wrong person in the first place. So they should recognise what bullying is first. It's abuse of power. And the victim of it, target. I prefer the word target than victim. Target's picked, It's up to the human resources to actually pick the bully and see it's abuse of power and start from that stage and explain to the bully what they're doing to the target. That's the best way to stop them. If that fails, the best way to transfer the bully, not the target, transfer their job. Why should the victim target change their jobs when they love it? They should look towards transferring the bully itself to a different department. That's a HR should tell the bully, stop this or you get transferred. And the best way to get around that is keep a paper trail as well. Telephone, keep a paper trail of every incident of bullying, no matter how small, because bullying is covert and hidden. If you keep a paper trail, you'll see trends, and it's subtle. It's like nitpicking 1,000 small things. And then when you come to the CHR, you give them 100 examples, and that'll just basically convince them that this is happening. It's not your imagination. Yeah, convince HR is the real thing. They'll try to bend it. That's a personality clash. That ever, but they'll try and bend that first. Get across that it's difficult. Bring your health into it as well. Damaging your health, damaging your production, and you can do your job better with a better line manager. Use your health and get HR behind you. Make sure HR is behind you, behind the bully. If HR gets behind the bully, that's you lost his jobs. That happened to me. HR supported the bully. I was stuck. I had to leave. I had no chance once that happened. So get behind HR, get a paper trail, and look towards transferring jobs or a new job. Yeah, if it's really toxic, get a new job.
Yeah, that's great advice. I have heard similar incidences where someone has fortunately gotten the help of HR, but HR was actually physically limited by all the policies to be able to elicit any real change. So although she tried to offer like the moral support and offer some sort of like insights and guidance and present a case as far as like data and the facts around the workplace went to the people involved, ultimately, like, the HR manager was still limited to what she could do to actually elicit the change. But the person I was speaking to said she was forever grateful because it meant that she knew that she wasn't alone, and it made the internalization of the issue a lot less like painful and impactful, because she knew that she had people on her side, even if ultimately the outcomes were not the ones that they had hoped for. So I think that's also quite powerful to know that yes, keeping a paper trail is essential, but also having someone that can back you, irrelevant of the outcome, can make a huge difference in how you perceive the event, and also potentially what could occur. But yes, there is, yeah, it's such a huge an ongoing issue, as you said, that starts right from the terminology that's used from like a government level, let alone like within the company's policies. So yeah, we're just trying to take it a step at a time and do what we can as individuals to protect ourselves and you know, raise awareness to the changes that need to happen. So we have 4 minutes left. I would love to know, let's see. Yes, I would love to hear a bit more about, just quickly, if you have any anything that you'd like to say as far as ways you've successfully advocated for the end of toxic workplace culture, and for those who are interested in reaching out to you, where can we find you, and some resources?
Part of my personal healing was to improve other folks' mental health. Done this in 3 different ways. First of all, I developed my own Facebook site. It's called Work Bullying UK. Work Bullying UK. You can find that on Facebook. That's like a self-help group. You ask questions and so forth. I created that straight away. And then that same year, I joined a Glasgow-based organisation called See Me. That's SEE type thing. They're a mental health stigma group, and anybody who's getting stigmatized due to their mental health can approach them, and they'll kind of give you advice, etc. And they were developing TV were developing an offshoot called TV at Work, and this is like contains tools, mental tools to use. It's for employers and people who are also bullied, to help employers understand what mental health is, treat employees in a better way, and for employees to understand what the help is available for them. It gives employers advice like how to understand their staff better, like get them training, for example, or workplace reassignments, so the job's easier for them. You know? So I helped them to develop the program, give them my personal experiences, some tips and advice on development at work thing. I've been doing that. And yeah, those 2 things I've been doing. See Me as well. And,
well, thank you so much. Yes, great. I will link them in the description as well, so everyone will be able to look themselves. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share your story and your incredible tips and insights. I think that, it's always, even if they are things that we've heard, it's always good to hear them again, and just to really, and also you offered some incredible, unique insights as far as like, getting outside of your comfort zone and doing something that might be escapist. I think that was so refreshing. So I really appreciate all of your insight, and hopefully we'll be seeing you again soon.
Yeah, feel free. Any questions, just get me on my own Facebook or the See Me or the UK, Workable UK one. You can catch me on that as well. I'm on it every day. I'm very quick to get back to folk. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for having me on. So much. Yeah, thanks for having me on. My pleasure.
Thanks again, everyone.